Hello, everyone. My name is Diane, and I'm an admissions representative with Kansas State University Online. I want to start by thanking everyone for joining us here tonight to learn more about our academic advising programs. I'm joined by the program chair, Dr. Christy Kraft, as well as other members of the department. Dr. Kraft is going to spend roughly the next 30 minutes or so giving us a presentation about this program, and then we'll spend the last 10 to 15 minutes answering any other questions. And some of those questions may be saved until the end for Dr. Kraft or the other department members to answer. And at this point, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Kraft.
Great, thank you. And I'm thrilled. Thank you, Diane. And I'm thrilled to be joined by departmental colleagues here who are going to assist with the presentation, so you don't have to listen to me the whole time. So let me introduce them. First of all, Dr. Wendy Troxel is on the screen. Dr. Craig McGill is with us, as well as Pam McGlynn. And so Pam's going to be the primary person with the chat. I think the rest of us will try to jump in if we can. If Pam gets a lot of questions, we might be joined in a little bit by another faculty member, Dr. Carroll. So if you see her pop up on the screen, you'll know why. She had another engagement related to work that oftentimes we have to figure out how to do multiple things. So she might join us, and I hope she does. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen here so that everyone can see a visual here as we get started. And I'm hopeful that you all can see that. Yes, okay. Dr. Troxel said that you can. So we are super excited to be able to talk about our academic advising programs, something that are obviously near and dear to our heart, a big part of our department. A big part of what we all do in our work is focused on these particular programs. Our department's larger than just academic advising. There are 3 other program areas, but the academic advising programs are our largest programs. So if you will probably go ahead and just skip the option of putting in the chat where you might be from, unless you want to. You certainly are welcome to introduce yourself in the chat if you want to, along with asking questions, and it is being recorded. So just wanted to remind people of that as well. So the graduate programs in academic advising here at Kansas State University are housed within the College of Education in our department. We're very pleased that our graduate programs in academic advising we've had a lot of support and partnership with NACADA in our academic advising graduate programs, both in terms of the development of the programs themselves, as well as teaching in the programs. And so NACADA has been a key partner for us in terms of what we've done with our academic advising programs. We're going to talk this evening about three programs, all of which are online. I'm assuming you all know that already. The graduate certificate in academic advising was the first program that we started back in 2003. It was so successful that it didn't take long for the department to determine that a master's degree was needed, and that program immediately was successful as well. And we've had strong enrollments in both the certificate and the academic and the master's program over the years. And then we realized, as we heard feedback from students who graduated from our master's in academic advising program, and others who had other master's degrees but wanted to pursue additional opportunities in academic advising, that we needed a doctorate degree as well. So back in 2020, which that we were all familiar with that year, that we launched our first cohort, and Dr. Troxel will be talking about that a little bit more in detail. But that gives you an overview of the 3 programs and when they started and the progression of them as well. So I'm going to start off and briefly talk about the graduate certificate. And by the way, this is a picture of Anderson Hall on campus here in Manhattan, Kansas. The campus as a whole is beautiful. I will say this is probably the most beautiful building on campus, so I don't want you to think that all of them look like this, but it is a gorgeous campus, and it's particularly pretty this time of the year. I should have put a picture up with the pretty colored leaves and things, but this is K-State, K-State Manhattan campus. So the curriculum for the graduate certificate program is on the screen. It's a five classes are required for the program. There's no required sequence for these courses. You simply take them when you're able to and when they're offered. They're all online and asynchronous, which means that there are typically not any required times when everyone has to be online at the same time. However, more often than not, as time has progressed since COVID hit, many faculty in our program are providing optional Zoom sessions for students. So a lot of these classes will have the opportunity for students to connect with each other synchronously in an optional way and not in a required way. So these are the 5 classes required, and all of these 5 classes, if a person decided that they wanted to go into the master's program, would all transfer into the master's program. I think and I hope that seeing the names of the classes will help people who might be interested in the program, help you all, because I think when I was looking at graduate programs and I had a general idea of what I wanted to do, it wasn't really till I started looking at the names of the classes that I was going to be taking in the program that it really hit that this is what I want to do for sure. So hopefully the names of the classes will pique your interest. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. McGill now to talk about the Master's in Academic Advising. And Dr. McGill, you just let me know when you want me to advance the slide. So I'll go ahead and advance it there since we already talked about Anderson Hall.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Kraft. Well, as Dr. Kraft shared, 5 of the 10 courses required for the master's program are from the graduate certificate. So we find a number of students who are in the certificate go on to the master's program. So in addition to those 5 courses, the students in the master's take 4 more courses. 4 of them are prescribed, as you can see under the required courses. And then 1 additional is the elective. And so we've got a restrictive elective from 3 possible options, either history and philosophy of higher education, assessment of academic advising, or current issues in intercollegiate athletics. And then the kind of capstone experience of the master's program is a project. It's not a master's thesis, but it's we ask students to meet 4 learning outcomes through a project of their choice. This can involve an analysis of case studies or a proposal of a program for academic advising on a campus, or something that's determined between the advisor and the student that may be a little bit different. Yeah, that's our master's program is 30 credits from there. The admission requirements are that you have a 3.0 minimum GPA in the final 2 years or the last 60 credits. We do have some exceptions to this. If you don't have a 3.0, we can admit you on a provisional basis, during which you need to demonstrate your ability to get to a 3.0 within the first 9 credits, I believe it is. And our applicants are accepted year round. So you can start in any semester, fall, summer, or spring. So, and in terms of your application, you should include the following: a resume or a curriculum vitae, a CV, a 1 to 2 page statement of your goals and the professional experiences that you've had, which could include the following: your career and professional goals and aspirations, the reason for your interest in the master's in academic advising, evidence that you are motivated, that you have leadership skills and a strong work ethic, and also any professional experiences that you have that can support your application. If you're an international student, you must include a statement that you are taking courses through distance education and will not come to the US for any of the formal coursework. And now I'm going to pass it off to Dr. Troxel to talk about the PhD in academic advising.
Thanks. Thanks, Dr. McGill. And I just might add that in the master's program, that pretty much all of the courses are kind of, you can tailor to your plans for your how fast you want to go through them, how many hours you want to take. I think, Dr. Kraft, correct me if I'm wrong, the only sequence of courses and prerequisites is that if you're going to elect to take the assessment of academic advising course, you have to have taken a research methods course, 816. Yeah, 816 is at the top. So to really grasp assessment, you need to understand evidence. You understand how we use data and that kind of thing. So I think that's the only set of prerequisites in there. Our certificate and master's programs are exceptional. And we have a lot of graduate students in both the certificate and the master's degree that are not yet academic advisors, but want to be. And there are a number who are, and then want to move forward in your profession. So, you know, good to kind of talk to us about your goals, particularly for why you're interested in those programs. We learned pretty quickly in the last 5 or 7 years that the next step would be a PhD program in leadership and academic advising. And this has been a real labor of love with our College of Education, our connections with NACADA, the Global Community for Academic Advising. And I just might add that Dr. McGill and Dr. Kraft are very active members in NACADA. I have a dual appointment with NACADA Research Center and the College of Ed. So the connection between NACADA and the college is very, very strong. So the Leadership and Academic Advising program is the first of its kind, we believe, in the world, focused specifically on academic advising and leadership in higher education. So there's a little kind of conceiving on, so it requires 90 hours post-baccalaureate. So if you count 30 hours for a master's degree, pretty much any related field, then what's left is 60 hours for the doctorate, which includes 45 hours of coursework and 15 hours of dissertation research. The program is a subplan under counseling and student development. There are some courses where you are in coursework with other students, doctoral students from our other programs as well. And then there are some courses that are cohort only. And I'll talk about the cohort here in a second. It is a cohort model, which means unlike the master's program where you can just enter at any point and take courses at any speed, the doctoral program is a cohort model. So it's very prescriptive. If you're in academic advising at all, you understand the term prescriptive advising. A very set curriculum that is known from the start. You can see that on the K-State Online website. All courses are offered through K-State Online. Occasionally, faculty members will have, as Dr. Kraft mentioned, synchronous sessions via Zoom, and we're all friends with Zoom now. One of the interesting things about the doctoral program is that we do require an on-campus in Manhattan, Kansas, 1 week, a little bit less in some summers, session for our cohort. And so those dates have been set for what will be cohort 3 in our doctoral program. Cohort 1 is finished with coursework and they're working on preliminary examinations and dissertations. Cohort 2 is in their second semester of courses because they start in the summer. And so the cohorts take 2 courses per semester, per term, for 7 consecutive semesters. They start in the summer of the even number of years. So the next cohort will begin in the summer of 2024. So then you would go summer, fall, spring, summer, fall, spring, summer. And the course kind of schedule is set out on the website. Following the coursework, then in this last summer, for example, cohort 1 just finished this past summer. They're working on preliminary exams right now and dissertation proposals. Lots of professional development activities. Yeah, Brittany, we went through the master's program already, but we're going to have plenty of time for questions. And so kind of hold those questions for just a second. We do have a lot of ongoing professional development. The cohort meets, each cohort meets once a month on Zoom. We kind of proclaim the date. Cohort 1, for example, does the first Tuesday of the month. Cohort 2 is doing second Wednesday. And so we just know we have a monthly meeting together where we connect, we just chat with each other, catch up with each other, and then also do lots of professional development through that coursework. As in any doctoral program, there are a lot of collaborative opportunities with the faculty, and each, of course, doctoral student has a major professor. In some programs, that's called your dissertation chair. But with both the master's and the doctoral program, you have a faculty member who is your advisor. Lots of interaction, and then lots of involvement with NACADA and the Research Center, and with faculty who are already publishing, doing studies, and lots of engagement as scholars throughout that program. The full information about application requirements are on the website. One additional thing that we do with the doctoral program, so this is kind of good news, good news. So the good news is that the GRE is not required for the application for admission to our consideration for admission to our doctoral program. Instead, the good news is that you have the opportunity to share with us what you wonder about related to the complexities of academic advising. So we ask you to submit an original scholarly essay. This is not a long document, but it needs to be an original one. And it is indication for us that you are thinking deeply about this field, about this profession, about the complexities of student learning and maturity and growth, the context of advising, the theories that underpin advising. And so you have the opportunity to do that. The third good news for you is that's not due for a year. So since we admit cohorts every 2 years, the application will be due on December 1st of 2023. So you have a year and a month to write your original scholarly essay and think about getting into a doctoral program. And then our third cohort will begin in summer 2024.
Thank you, Dr. Troxel. I'm going to go ahead, and we've got just a little bit more of our presentation, and then we have plenty of time for questions. So I'm going to share a short video about one of our master's graduates turned PhD student. And so Christy was a student in our master's program a number of years ago and just started along with cohort 2 this last summer. So here's some words from her about her experience in the master's program.
For students that are wondering, what's their next step? For me, it took a lot of years to determine that. And I finally figured out, I'm researching careers and I'm doing this, I'm looking into development for students, and this was the answer to what it was. Every time I wanted to know something, I sent an email, and really that was really one of the driving forces as to why I decided to attend, because it was just such, it was really personal and they really cared. I'm the type of person that likes to be in the class with the professor up front, and I actually really feel like I had that experience with the global campus. I know several of my professors, and I feel the real connection with them. So the global experience for me has been really almost better than in the classroom because there was so much contact. I feel that it's really been, I've been a part of the family. I want to get as much academic advising experience as possible. I really enjoy student development, and that was a big part of our program. So lots of our classes really focus on theory and development. And for me, that was important because it lets you get to the heart of the student. One of the things that I was able to do that I really like is attend the NACADA conference. So I met several of my professors there. really made connections there. On campus, because I was in the program, I was also able to create and work with one of our provosts to actually do an assistantship in academic advising. Halfway through the program, my father passed away, and I needed some time, and he gave me the time that I needed. For some, they might have stopped and taken a break, and because of their care, because he really just allowed me what I needed. And so I didn't stop, I kept going and I finished. And so for me, that said a lot. It said a lot about who they are as just a family, as Kansas State, and how much they care about their students. There can be challenging times. And so just the fact that they made sure that I had everything I needed all the time. I think because of that and their partnership, even with NACADA, I mean, really makes it something that students love. And so this distance education at a, just a world-renowned university, for me, highly respected. You can't get much better at all.
I like when I see that video, I like especially not only hearing from Christy and hearing about how her faculty had helped support her, but seeing the photos of commencement. I tell you what, there's nothing, I don't know that there's a whole lot more exciting to me personally, and I think I'm probably speaking on behalf in a way that represents my colleagues as well, than to be at graduation and to watch our students walk across the stage. And it's something to really work towards, and we're really excited about. So what are the next steps if you're interested? Applying, of course, and we can talk about details of that in the Q&A time if you'd like. I'm also going to share this screen before we move to some of the Q&A time and let you know that you're welcome to, quite frankly, you can contact any of us about any of this. And I think any of us would be willing and eager to answer questions that you might have about the programs after the fact if you start thinking about some things. So don't hesitate. We get emails a lot. We like to respond to those. And so that ends the formal presentation. I'm going to stop sharing the screen right now. We can bring it back up if we want to later. But I think I haven't had a chance to watch the chat, so I'm just going to ask if any of my colleagues or if any of you have seen questions in the chat that need answered while I get caught up on them.
I think Pam answered most of them, but now's the time. You joined us. You joined us for a reason. So what do you want to know about that we haven't addressed yet?
For some reason, I'm not accessing I'm not getting the chat. Oh, there it is. Okay, so the screen with the contact information back up, I certainly can.
And touch on the master's requirements a little bit more, and typical workload for courses. Okay. I'm assuming in the master's program.
Okay, so let me share the screen first and kind of go back to that and make sure everyone has that written down. So Dr. McGill is C. McGill at ksu.edu. I'm C. Craft. And then Dr. Troxel, W.G. Troxel, all at ksu.edu. If you happen to lose track of that contact information at some point, you can find us online and you'll be able to easily connect with us that way. So you could also contact Diane, who set up the webinar, and ask for that information. So in terms of the other questions, there were several. Dr. Troxel, you had asked about the application for the master's program. Is that what the question had been?
Degree requirements. Yeah, let's start with the master's program questions, and then there are a couple of questions about the doctoral program. But a little reminder about the degree, the requirements for a master's degree, typical workload. Semesters are a typical 16-week, 16, right? Yeah. 16-week fall and spring, 8-week typically. In the summer.
Yep, that's right. So I think, when we look at the master's applications, we're looking at a couple of things. We're looking at your grades from particularly the last couple of years of your undergraduate education. We realize that for many students, sometimes the first couple of years are a little rockier, And so we look at the last couple of years, and then as Dr. McGill mentioned earlier in the presentation, if a person doesn't have a 3.0 GPA for the last couple of years of their undergraduate work, it doesn't mean that they're definitely not getting in. There are other options for admission, such as provisional admission, probationary admission, those types of things that provide an opportunity for students to get started and to demonstrate through their grades in our program and in a couple of our classes that they're able to be successful in the program. And then when that happens, it gets automatically transferred to regular admission. And so we actually are happy to be able to help students get started in the program that way when they have the opportunity and the desire to do that. And I do see the courses are 16 weeks in fall and spring, and most of them are 8 weeks in the summer. We've experimented with a couple of 6-week courses in the summer as well, and we need to talk about kind of what that looks like moving forward. But so 16-week, 8-week courses. Students, in terms of the number of courses they might take, it varies. I will tell you that most of our students take only 1 or 2 a semester. Every once in a while, one of our students might try to take 3 courses at once. I can tell you that can be quite challenging at times, and that's what we've heard from students. And I would say we strongly discourage students from taking more than 3. And so even the conversation about taking 3, we're pretty serious about, really let's think about that, because this is graduate level work. It's time consuming. Most of us have a lot of other things we're doing with our lives. And so that's one thing that I would comment on as well. So what am I missing, colleagues? What else?
This is a really good question. I'm going to pose it first to Dr. McGill, and then I'll give kind of the question is, are you allowed to work ahead in most courses, or is the curriculum set by weeks or some other schedule? How do you set up your courses, Dr. McGill, in terms of modules and such?
Yeah, I think it depends on the class. Mostly, I think you stick within the week that you're in, but during the week, however far ahead you get is up to you. But because we're asynchronous, we depend largely on discussion board. And so it doesn't make sense for students to be in totally different places in the class when the discussion board is such a critical part of discourse for the information. So I would say there's flexibility within the weeks, but not a ton beyond before or after.
I would agree. These aren't kind of the old correspondence courses where you had kind of finish these projects, show that you know this stuff, and if you do it in 1 week or 16 weeks, who cares? Yeah, these are more synchronous kind of progression-wise, because there is pedagogy to our courses, there is scaffolding to our courses. And so for the courses that I teach in the master's program, for example, I'll do, as Dr. McGill said, discussion boards about every 3 or 4 weeks. And there is intention for kind of what those discussions are. Some questions mean modules and discussions topics are locked. Man, that depends on the faculty member. Some of us tend to open everything up, but it's not a good idea to work ahead. Others kind of reveal a couple of modules at a time. Just like undergraduate, you just got to learn what faculty, the differences in faculty, just as we learn the differences in students. So Dr. McGill, what do you do?
Yeah, I would say that all of the reading assignments are available from the get-go. So you can, in my classes, you can always read ahead. It just doesn't necessarily make sense to work ahead in terms of the discussion board per se. But yeah, certainly like getting ahead in terms of reading, and that can be really helpful if you know that you've got something coming up. So, and most of my classes tend to be pretty reading heavy, I would say. So.
Yeah, I tend to give videos that go along with all the assignments. And if I'm doing a video about the final project, but the first week of class, then it's important for me to say, don't panic. Like, don't panic yet, because you will be ready for the final project by the time you get there. And so like, I like to see the end game. Not everyone likes to see the end game, but so I tend to kind of open things up. But usually discussions, I don't open up until the week that it's due.
Dr. Troxel, this is Pam. Can you
Yeah.
address the qualifications for the PhD? Do they
Yeah.
already have to have a master's to enter the PhD?
Yeah, they do have to have a master's degree, and what we describe it as in a related field. So it does not have to be a master's in academic advising. In fact, we have students in our current doctoral program with masters in all kinds of things: forestry, music. I mean, my own, background is in music, as is Dr. McGill's, and now we're in kind of higher education stuff. So, so what we do care about is that you're prepared for the program of study. And so there are a few courses that if we've had one of our current students, for example, is a humanities, has a humanities background, has never taken a research methods course in their life. And so we actually require that someone take a master's level research methods course so that you are ready for doctoral level qualitative, doctoral level quantitative research methods, very social science oriented in our program. There are a couple of other courses that we hope to see from your master's program, but that you may have to take in supplement, one in multiculturalism in higher education or diversity in academic advising. We have a couple of courses that are available for that, but there are a lot of other relevant courses at other institutions. And then the third, are those the two? I'm trying to remember. Yeah, the two, research methods and some formal graduate education in multiculturalism. Can relevant course, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I can take a couple of the questions.
Yeah, go right ahead.
While you're looking. Tara asked about sample syllabi. Sample syllabi are available. I frequently get requests for those, and I always just make sure students know that there's no guarantee that the way a certain course was taught one semester, it will be exactly the way it's taught the next semester. But I am happy to share, and several of us, I think, are past syllabi from our courses to give you an idea of what it might look like. So I think that's a really, really good question. If anyone's having trouble, here's another question, uploading materials into your application, you can certainly email me and I can work with you to make sure those materials get to the graduate school to go through that process of review. So those are a couple. Dr. Troxel, you were going to jump in again with.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you saw, Dr. Kraft, the question on the webinar Q&A, which is, are there assistantship opportunities available for PhD students?
There certainly can be. In fact, we have one of our doctoral students right now serving as a graduate teaching assistant for us, one of our doc students in our academic advising program. So we don't have a set number per year, but we certainly are trying to make more and more opportunities available to those who might be interested. So if anyone on this Zoom session tonight ends up applying to the doctoral program and wants to really be considered for an assistantship, I would ask you to reach out to me and let me know of your interest, and we can have discussions from that point on.
So Rainey, so I hope I pronounced that right, as can relevant coursework from previous degrees be transferred, for example, taking a research methods course in psychology? At the master's level, Dr. Kraft, correct me if I'm wrong, that's probably possible as a prerequisite for kind of a core requirement for preparation for the doctoral students. That's certainly relevant, but can you talk a little bit about transfer?
I think the one thing to keep in mind is that if you're applying into the doctoral program, a course that's already embedded in your master's degree cannot count twice. And so we're already counting your master's degree for 30 hours toward the doctorate. If that particular course of interest is already embedded in there, it can't count twice. So another scenario for possible doctoral people who come into doctoral program is that they might have a master's degree that counts for 30 hours, and then maybe they've taken one or two extra graduate courses that would potentially apply to the program, and that those we would look at extra. But in terms of our master's program, The research course there, we do occasionally have students who transfer in a suitable course. We look at the course syllabus to see if it aligns with what we do in our program. And so, yeah, that's something that we can look at. The key thing from the graduate school's perspective is that we can't double dip. It can't be a situation where you're, counting one course twice to meet two different ways and two different degrees. So,
there are limits to the number of hours you can transfer in each degree, correct?
that's correct. Yeah. So, and those are the types of things that are so individualized that I would encourage you just to email me. I get a lot of those kind of emails. Oftentimes what happens is someone will email me and they'll send me their transcript. And I'll say, is there anything here that would potentially transfer into your program? That's a good first step. I can look at the transcript. I can look at the names of the courses. And then I usually identify the names of the courses that look similar to the names of our courses. And at that step, after that, I ask for actual course syllabi from those courses. And then when I get those syllabi in, if it's a course I teach, I can make a judgment call on it. If it's a course I don't teach, I pass those syllabi off to our faculty who teach those courses and ask them, would this serve as a suitable substitute? And so that would be a good way to do it, would just to be contact me individually and we can talk about your own background and what you might bring in.
Question about CLEP or DSSTs that count toward the master's.
I'm not aware.
That's kind of an undergraduate thing, isn't it?
That's what I was just going to say, undergrad.
Yeah. These are excellent questions from everyone. So lots of information coming and going. So what are we missing? If we've missed a question, please feel free to retype it. You won't offend us. We're trying to keep up with it all. And
Dr. Kraft, we do have a question. I'm not sure if it's been addressed, but Tara asked, is there a minimum or maximum courses per term? If necessary, can a term be taken off? And she also wanted to know a typical costs other than tuition, textbook costs, technology fees, and things like that.
Sure. So I think earlier I mentioned that we advise students not to take more than 3 classes per semester. Most take 1 or 2. Every once in a while, a student needs a semester off, and that's fine. There's taking 1 semester off doesn't require any paperwork or any kind of official documentation. And it happens fairly regularly because life happens, and then the student jumps right back in the next semester. The challenge would arise if someone took 2 years off. And at that point, according to the graduate school, if someone's stopped out for 2 years, then they would need to reapply into the program. But taking 1 semester off and then jumping back in certainly is fine. We always advise our students to let us know, so we don't worry about you. We want to make sure we know how you're doing. And if you're going to take a semester off, just let your major professor know. And the second question was it about costs? So is that what you were saying, Diane? Some of those additional costs. So I think Pam mentioned the cost of some of the textbooks, and I don't know about the technology fee specifically for online students. Are you familiar with any of the fee, Diane, anything related to fees?
We do have a fee structure breakdown that I'd be happy to provide a link on in the chat if anyone's interested in that. It does kind of give you the breakdown of what makes up the tuition fee.
Thank you. Go ahead, Dr. Troxel.
No, I was going to address the Tara's question. Tara has great questions. Perspective of the job field in general, and then questions about group work, which is always a fun topic. Boy, I'm interested, Dr. McGill and Dr. Kraft, especially kind of your sense. But 2 years ago, I would have been less hopeful for new master's graduates in that. But there's a lot of shift in higher education right now in the workforce. There is since COVID, there is a lot of shift in types of positions that are available. I'm hearing more and more about flexible work schedules, I'm hearing more and more about part-time opportunities for people in other fields like K-12 employees who are working part-time on the evenings and weekends when students really want to have meetings, as opposed to 8 to 5 on a campus in an office. Lots more virtual opportunities for those kinds of things. And so it still depends in some cases whether you're place bound. It still depends in some cases what type of experience that's required. We're playing with some options in the future about kind of practicum experiences for those who aren't yet in the academic advising area, but interesting shifts in the position response possibilities in this area. So Dr. McGill, I'm not sure if, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Well, go ahead. I don't have anything else to offer there. So Dr. McGill, if you do, you go ahead and jump in.
I do not, but we've got a related question about, does K-State offer support in acquiring a job?
Who wants to take that one?
Well, I think someone mentioned in the chat, either Pam or Diane mentioned in the chat, that our connections with the NACADA are really important. We just finished our annual conference this past week in Portland, Oregon, and we had a lot of our master's and certificate students who were at the conference networking, getting involved with advising communities, getting involved with committees. It's what you know and who you know in the workforce these days. So getting connected, getting known, getting involved is really important. I don't think any program in the country assures you a job, quite frankly, after graduation, but we're going to do everything we can to connect you with our colleagues and others who are, I mean, I had lots of colleagues saying, like, we're desperate for employees, like we've got 4 positions that we're trying to recruit for, and so we try to connect as much as we can. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
People are saying, answer Elizabeth's question, please answer Elizabeth's question. So Elizabeth was asking about, do people sometimes coming with a master already have a master's degree and simply want to pursue the certificate? And the answer to that is absolutely. We have a lot of students who come in with a master's degree in some other area or a related area, and they want just the certificate to add some additional, to gain some additional knowledge and expertise. And so that's a very common occurrence in our program, is for someone to pursue the certificate. It looks like Pam responded to the question about the transfer of courses. We can, at this point, we can transfer up to 2 courses into the certificate program, again, if they're relevant and if we deem them to be similar enough to the courses in our program. So Elizabeth, sorry, just now getting to that question, and I hope that answered it. If not, feel free for anyone else to add, you or anyone else to add additional questions.
Yeah, I mean, I know of lots of colleagues who have doctorates, PhDs, who now are working in advising areas. One is an associate provost at an institution who has a PhD in her discipline and is now responsible for advising at her institution, and decided to take the certificate program and to just learn what the current state of knowledge is in academic advising, which is a lot more complex than when this particular person was in college herself, for sure. Transition between certificate and master's seamless, right?
Mm-hmm. Seamless. We have a lot of our students who do that. In fact, sometimes when students contact me and they're debating, do I apply into the certificate or the master's program, and they're just not real sure, oftentimes I tell them it makes a lot of sense to start with a certificate and go from there. And it's an interesting, the way it's set up here at K-State is that if you are in the certificate program and you decide you want to be in the master's program, you do have to apply into that program, but it's a very seamless process. If you're in the master's program, if you were initially admitted into the master's and then you want to make sure you get that certificate as well, since it's embedded within it, that process happens without any kind of new application. All you have to do is let me know. I email the graduate school. They add that to your record that you're working toward the certificate. And then the only other aspect of that is the end of the certificate. When you've completed the courses for the certificate, you submit one form of completion at the end, and that's done. So in some ways, it's a little easier to go from master's to adding the certificate here. But both ways are very seamless because they're all within our department, and so it works very, very easily.
We had a question earlier on about group work, and I'm sure people have different perspectives on this, but the 3 classes that I teach for the master's each involve group work. And I know that, I was a master's student once upon a time too. And initially it was like, oh gosh, group work. But I think students really like the connection they have when they meet colleagues in a group, since we're not synchronous and we're not in person. And I found it to be an effective way for students to build relationships with one another and to just kind of reinforce collaborative learning with one another. I don't know what you two have experienced, but
yeah, I go back and forth on that one. But so one I often teach is the assessment of academic advising course. And what I always kind of remind the students is never, ever, ever will you develop an assessment plan for your unit or department by yourself in your house. It will always be a collaborative experience. And some will say, well, that's not the real, it's absolutely the real world. What's not the real world is learning by yourself in a graduate program and then expecting to go and applying it in a group setting on at your new institution or current institution. Now, we know there are challenges to kind of, if you're with our colleague in South Africa and you're in Boise, then there are time zone issues and you got to figure that out. But it's another wonderful opportunity as you get connected with the global community of academic advising. And we have over 13,000 members from 40 countries around the world. And we don't sweat no time zone in the global community. We figure it out and we work collaboratively and we're held accountable to each other. And that's a really important process. Not every course will have group work, but when it does, it will be intentional and purposeful.
That's good.
So there.
That's good. I think that was, both of those responses were excellent. And so, yeah, it differs. I mean, it's different by class, by course, by professor. So you'll get a variety of experiences because of the fact that we have different faculty members teaching the different courses, and the different topics lend themselves to different types of learning experiences. And so to me, when I was a graduate student, and I can say the same about our program, the diverse experiences, learning experiences that I had in the graduate program were amazing for me. And so enjoy the diverse experiences you get. Brittany's asked the question about coming to campus for certificate and master's programs. For our certificate and master's programs, no, you're never required to come to campus. We would hope you'd come when it's time to graduate so that we could see you and meet you then. But then for the doctorate, as Pam said, for the doctoral program, we ask our students to come 3 times. 1 week for each of the first 3 summers that they're in the program. And then again, we want them to come for graduation, but that's not a requirement. So hopefully that answers your question, Brittany. These are just excellent questions. Are there opportunities to shadow advisors or get experience while in the different programs? I'll let turn this over to my colleagues to respond from their experiences as well. But I can tell you, at this point, we don't have a structured learning experience for that, but we frequently have had, at least I've had, and they probably have as well, students who've come to me and asked for those kinds of opportunities, and we try to connect them with professionals in the field who might be eager to provide some opportunities for them. So while we don't have it right now as a structured part of our program, we do our best to network with other people and provide and help to create opportunities and ideas that would be helpful to our students with regard to shadowing and getting experience. Dr. Troxell, Dr. McGill, anything you want to add about that?
Yeah, I would say that the most successful master's students that I've seen who are not yet academic advisors have taken it upon themselves to create those experiences. And just like connections with committees and interest groups and communities in NACADA, that they definitely have connections, ask for collaborative connections with others, and the community across the world is amazing, and we can usually connect you with someone. I will just say that in the assessment course, for example, it's assessment of academic advising. So, I mean, I've had pharmacists and kindergarten teachers take that course, and they're required to do an assessment project that relates to data relating to academic advising. And they are so creative and so engaged with that work. We work together on that. And so kind of, when you become a graduate student, you're an adult, and you know what you want, and you know what your goals are.
Good. Are there any courses that are significantly harder than others? Dr. McGill, do you want to respond to that one?
I'll just say that research methods tends to scare students the most, but it really shouldn't. I don't know how it gets this kind of perception, but it does scare students. But we actually encourage students to take it earlier on. Number one, because it's a prerequisite for assessment. But number two, at least when I teach it, my primary goals is to make students more competent consumers of research literature, which will benefit you in additional classes. So I don't think we have courses that are significantly harder than any others, but there is the perception of that.
I'm going to give my grandfather's answer. What my grandfather used to say when we would be at a dinner with lots of interesting things, he'll say, "You'll like it if you like that kind of thing." So it's hard if you find that kind of thing hard. Like, it depends on what your skills and abilities are. If you don't like reading much, the reading courses are going to be harder for you. If you love to read, those are going to be the easier courses. So there's a nice range of all types of learning styles.
That's great. I love that. And I'm smiling and laughing because Dr. McGill teaches a lot of our research methods courses. And so I hope you can see that we have good fun with each other as well as we go through this. So what is the average class size? I can tell you the range and talk to you a little bit about how we do that. I would say that most of our classes that are in the certificate and master's program probably range anywhere from 15 students to 30. The larger they are, the more likely they are to be split into smaller discussion groups so that there's a feel of a smaller class size. For example, I teach the student development theory class in the summer, and it's not uncommon to have about 30 students every summer. And I typically break them into 2 discussion groups for the whole summer. And so that it's it feels like a class of 15 for each of those. Doctoral classes, usually I would say that most of them are probably no more than about 15 students. And even in some of those, the classes are structured such that students have the opportunity to feel like a small part of a smaller group. So we've had a lot of positive feedback from our students in all of our programs about just feeling connected in their classes. And so I think that's something to be said as well, where class sizes are concerned. Dr. Troxel, do you want to talk about what a dissertation might look like compared to a master's final project?
Wow. If you were to ask me, what does a master's thesis look like compared to a doctoral dissertation, I would say they are fairly similar, but except for scope. For our master's program tends to be very practitioner oriented. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, there's a comprehensive project, case studies, very focused on praxis, the connection between theory and practice. So you need to kind of articulate a deeper sense of understanding about the literature, as well as that. The dissertation is a much bigger animal, and but you are prepared for it. If you're in the PhD program, you go through 7 semesters of coursework, working with your major professor, a preliminary exam that's meant to prepare you to connect your coursework with your dissertation. And then your dissertation is a pretty major research study, either an evidence-based study or a conceptual study or a creative project or a series of manuscripts that can get published. There's a lot of flexibility with the dissertations in our program, but it is meant to be a pretty hefty, culminating experience that a lot of people are a little scared of, but once they get to it, they're prepared for. So, you know, think about a master's program is really half the coursework of a doctoral program. And so it is significantly more, but worth it. And you are among a really honored few that have a terminal degree in higher education.
And I'll just say, you know, I'm a self-proclaimed nerd, but although I loved my coursework, the dissertation was my favorite part of the entire process for me. It was a chance to just really dig into the issues that I was passionate about, and to produce something new and original. And we of course have tremendous support for our students. You know, you'll be working very closely with a major professor alongside a committee member, a committee with 3 other members who will support you in different ways. So as Dr. Troxel said, it's not like you finish coursework and then you're on your own. It's very, you're very supported throughout the whole thing, and you're ready to go once you do.
And I'm going to go to Rainey's question because it relates, and we'll go back to Elizabeth's. We don't want to forget Elizabeth. So the question is publication required and or recommended throughout the master's or doctorate? I would say that the short answer to that is it's not required, but it's strongly recommended. We have faculty who are publishing in the field and love to have students work collaboratively with us. And I would say that we really strongly encourage our doctoral students to consider publication when opportunities when they arise, in presentations at conferences as well. That's part of being a doctoral student. I think you would find that that in some places it is required, if not required, that it is a recommendation across many doctoral programs. Do either of my colleagues have anything to add to that before we go to Elizabeth's question? So Elizabeth asked, is it okay if I can just go get the grad certificate and then the PhD? Absolutely. Absolutely. You wouldn't have to get a grad certificate even. I think there's benefit to that if you don't have coursework or if you haven't had that kind of experience, but it wouldn't be required technically. Anyone with a master's degree can apply directly into our PhD program. So.
I mean, oh, sorry.
No, please, Dr. McGill.
I would just also echo that, like, one of the riches of our field is that people come from all academic walks of life. So whatever your academic background is, it is valued, and it will enrich the field, whatever it is.
Yeah, and Elizabeth, I would add, so you have 2 master's degree and work as a college professor in writing humanities. You're making me tear up just a little bit because, like, come on. And we have a current doctoral student who has a background in the humanities and was really scared to take the research methods, the social science research methods course, so had to take the 816 and killed it. I mean, nailed it, and is now taking doctoral level stats and is doing, I can say this because you don't know who it is doing really, really well in that. And so if you are, have been a scholar and understand curiosity, you're gonna have no problem.
I hope you all are seeing that we get very excited about you all and the possibility of having you seriously consider our programs. And I hope you all are seeing that we're excited about our programs. We're really proud of what we do. And so I hope that you all will consider. It is 9 o'clock, and so we want to be respectful of time.
Central time.
Yeah, Central time. Thank you. So do any of my colleagues have any last things that they'd like to share before we wrap things up?
Just that we're happy that you're here tonight, and we'd be more than happy to talk to any of you who are interested in any of our programs.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Troxell, Dr. McGill, thank you, Pam, and thank you, Diane. So at this point, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Diane.
And thank you to Dr. Kraft, Dr. Troxell, and Dr. McGill for that wonderful presentation. And I also want to make sure to thank everyone tonight for joining us for this presentation. If you are ready to apply, please visit our website at online.ksu.edu and select how to apply for detailed instructions. As a reminder, everyone who has registered for this webinar will be receiving a recording once it's available. And if you had any questions that we didn't cover tonight, please don't hesitate to reach out. I did provide that email online@ksu.edu, and we're always happy to answer any other questions that you may have. And then finally, we also wanted to let you know that anyone who is applying to the academic advising master's degree for the upcoming spring semester is eligible for an application fee waiver. So again, please feel free to reach out to us at that email. And thank you again for joining us tonight. And I hope you all have a great night.